Welcome back to my YouTube channel. The night before my son's wedding, the house was glowing with soft golden lights. The air was thick with the scent of roses and the hum of laughter drifting from the living room. My heart was full, after all. My only son was about to start a new chapter of his life. But as I placed the final touches on the centerpiece I'd made myself, she walked in. His fiancée, radiant in her silk robe, her eyes sharp as glass. She looked me straight in the eye and said almost coldly, "After tomorrow, you're not part of this family." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. The words echoed in my mind like a cruel whisper. My hands trembled and I could barely find my voice. "What do you mean?" I asked. She smirked slightly and replied, "You've done your job. From tomorrow, he's mine, and there's no place for you anymore." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, the moonlight pouring over my trembling hands. I thought of every moment. The scraped knees I'd kissed better, the bedtime stories, the late-night talks about his dreams. I had given my life to raising a man who I hoped would build a loving home, and now I was being erased from it. Morning came heavy and gray. My heart was too broken to face the celebration. I decided not to go. I told myself, if this is what he wants, I'll let him have his happiness, even if it costs me mine. I turned off my phone and sat in silence, tears staining the letters of the old family album on my lap. Hours later, there was a loud knock on the door. When I opened it, my son stood there and his eyes red, his face pale. "The wedding's off," he said hoarsely. He told me that just before the ceremony, he found out the truth. She had been cruel not only to me, but to others in the family too. She wanted control, not love. When he confronted her, she didn't deny it. So he walked away, from the altar, from the decorations, from the future that wasn't built on respect. He hugged me, tighter than he had in years, and said, "Mom, if she can't honor the woman who raised me, she can't love me either." In that moment, my heart broke again. But this time, it was from pride. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than confrontation. Sometimes, love wins quietly. So here's my message. Never apologize for standing in your truth. If someone tries to erase your worth, step back with grace. The right hearts will always find their way back to you. The night before my son's wedding felt like a dream I had been waiting for all my life. Every corner of the house was wrapped in warmth and excitement. The walls echoed with laughter. The smell of freshly cooked food filled the air, and the glow of fairy lights made everything look almost magical. I had spent weeks preparing, ironing his suit, helping with the arrangements, even picking flowers that matched the color of his fiancée's favorite dress. As I moved through the living room, I couldn't help but smile, thinking about how far we had come. I remembered the little boy who used to cling to my hand, who would run to me for comfort, and now he was stepping into a new life, creating a home of his own. My heart was heavy with emotions, joy, nostalgia, and a quiet ache that only a mother understands. That night, I stood by the window looking at the moon, whispering a small prayer for his happiness. I wanted everything to be perfect for him because that's what mothers do. We love without measure, we hope without limit, and we give even when our hearts tremble. I had no idea that before the night ended, those same walls filled with laughter would fall into a silence I'd never forget. She walked into the room with a calmness that didn't match the chaos of the preparations around her. Her voice was soft, but her words carried a sharpness that cut through the air like glass. I remember the exact moment. She looked straight into my eyes, her lips barely curving into a smile, and said, "After tomorrow, you're not part of this family." For a second, I couldn't even process what I'd just heard. I thought she was joking, maybe overwhelmed by pre-wedding stress. But there was no humor in her eyes, no hint of warmth, only cold certainty. The room suddenly felt smaller, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it echo. My throat tightened, and I tried to form words, to ask her why, to remind her that I had done nothing but welcome her like my own daughter. But she had already turned away, her attention shifting to her phone as if the conversation was over. I stood there frozen, my hands gripping the edge of the table just to stay steady. Every memory of the kindness I had shown her flashed through my mind. The dinners, the gifts, the countless times I'd gone out of my way to make her feel loved. And now, in one sentence, she had reduced all that to nothing. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room, leaving behind only the weight of rejection. That night, I carried her words with me like a wound I couldn't see but could feel in every breath. That night, I couldn't bring myself to sleep. I sat by the window, the moonlight casting pale shadows across the room, listening to the distant hum of the world that seemed to move on without me. My heart felt heavy, like it had been wrapped in stone. Every time I closed my eyes, her words came back to me, sharp, cold, final. I thought of all the years I had poured my soul into raising my son. Every birthday I had planned, every sleepless night when he was sick, every tear I had wiped from his face. How could all of that suddenly mean so little? I wondered if he knew what she had said, if he would believe me if I told him. But then I thought, maybe this was her plan, to push me away quietly, to make me disappear from his life without a scene. I didn't want to be the reason his wedding was shadowed by conflict or whispers. As dawn began to soften the sky, I made a decision. I folded the outfit I had planned to wear, the one I had chosen so carefully, and placed it back into the closet. I whispered a small prayer, not for myself, but for him, that he would find peace, even if I wasn't there to see it. I wrote him a short note, simple and steady, saying that I loved him, that I was proud of him, and that sometimes love means stepping back. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. When the morning came, I stayed home, sitting in silence as the hours crawled by, imagining the laughter, the music, the vows being exchanged somewhere without me. But deep down, I knew I had done the only thing my heart would allow, to protect my son from pain, even if it meant breaking my own. The hours passed slowly, each minute heavier than the last. I sat in my quiet living room, the silence pressing against my chest like a weight. Every sound outside, a car passing, a distant laugh, made me wonder what was happening at the wedding. I pictured him standing there in his suit, nervous but smiling, unaware that his mother was sitting miles away, clutching an old photo of him as a boy. I told myself this was what love looked like sometimes, invisible, quiet, painful. I tried to distract myself, made tea I couldn't drink, turned on the TV but couldn't focus. My heart ached with a strange mix of love, sorrow, and emptiness. Then, just when I had begun to surrender to the stillness, a knock echoed through the house. Loud, urgent, desperate. My hands shook as I went to open the door, and there he was, my son, standing on the porch, his eyes red, his face pale, the tie from his suit hanging loose around his neck. For a moment, we just stared at each other, neither of us able to speak. Then he stepped forward, his voice cracking as he said, "Mom, the wedding didn't happen." I felt the air leave my lungs. He told me that just before the ceremony, he had overheard her arguing with her friends, mocking me, mocking our family, calling us a burden she'd soon be rid of. He said it was like watching a stranger wear the face of the woman he thought he loved. He couldn't go through with it. He said he realized love can't grow where there's no respect. His voice trembled as he told me, "If she couldn't see your worth, Mom, she could never truly love me." I couldn't stop the tears that came then, not of sadness, but of something purer, something freeing. I held him close, the way I used to when he was little, his head buried against my shoulder, both of us shaking, both of us breathing through the pain that somehow felt like healing. In that embrace, I understood. Sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about letting someone find the truth on their own. That moment, standing in the doorway with my son's arms wrapped around me, felt like time had stopped. The house that had been silent for hours was suddenly alive with the sound of his tears, and mine blending into something that felt like forgiveness. The pain that had been pressing on my chest began to loosen, replaced by a deep calm that words couldn't touch. He pulled back, his eyes full of regret and understanding, and said softly, "I should have listened to my heart sooner." I smiled through my tears, brushing his hair back the way I used to when he was a child, and told him that life has its way of revealing truth at the right time. Sometimes we need to lose something we thought we wanted to see what truly matters. We sat together for hours, talking about everything and about love, loyalty, and how sometimes people wear masks so convincing that we mistake them for home. He admitted that her words had haunted him ever since she said them to me, that deep down, something had felt wrong. I listened quietly, not with bitterness, but with gratitude, because life had spared him a future built on lies. The hurt was still there, but it was changing, no longer sharp, no longer cruel. It had turned into a quiet strength, a reminder that love isn't measured by grand gestures or ceremonies, but by respect, empathy, and truth. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in soft gold and amber, I felt peace wash over me. My son wasn't just my child anymore. He was a man who had faced heartbreak and chosen integrity over illusion. He kissed my forehead and said, "You were right to stay home. Mom, I needed to see it for myself." I held his hand and realized that everything had unfolded exactly as it was meant to. Painfully, beautifully, honestly. Sometimes the universe breaks our hearts only to show us where real love begins again. In the days that followed, life slowly began to find its rhythm again. The decorations came down, the guests went home, and the whispers faded, but what remained was something far greater than a canceled wedding. It was truth. My son and I spent quiet evenings talking, healing, and rediscovering the bond that had always been there beneath the noise of the world. I realized that love doesn't always arrive with celebrations and flowers. Sometimes it arrives disguised as loss, teaching us who truly deserves a place in our hearts. Looking back, I no longer see that night as the end of something, but the beginning of a deeper, purer chapter. I learned that letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the silent strength of a heart that knows its worth. My son's heartbreak became his awakening, and my pain became proof that even in silence, a mother's love speaks the loudest. So if you ever find yourself standing at the edge of rejection, remember this. Sometimes life removes people from your path not to punish you, but to protect you. True love, the kind built on respect and kindness, always finds its way back. And when it does, it brings peace that no wedding, no promise, and no title can ever replace.